Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
customer service, it's just you have to put in a ticket.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get back to you.
Okay, where's my pause button?
That's
It's usually-
frustrating.
Where's the pause button? It's
Yeah,
normally
I
on.
had to check that.
It's a pause. huh? There it
Way
is.
the,
Here it is.
way up.
Okay, it's. Ooh,
Now, do you want me to take note?
I was gonna say Carter, yeah,
It's
it's,
not. Yeah, you can rest.
it's
Worst case, I could.
7:09. Call the meeting to order. Carter, if you could take notes, that would be awesome. And I know before I even get home, you'll have them shot out.
No. It's not.
Oh. Always when you would take the notes and they would be there like the draft immediately.
I don't like that stuff sitting on my plate.
I know, but once I leave here, I'm sort of like, I need to decompress.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with the approval of the review of the draft minutes from January 8th. Does anyone have, I can't use my finger to turn my page. Anybody have any updates, remarks? I have one little typo on page 2. Number 3.
If you can give me two.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the second page, number 3 at the top, Pam requested a completed detailed report of, or I think you've just, 4 should be either of all the presentations to date instead of the word for.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything?
Yes, below that in section C1.
Yeah.
Pam and Lillian request the levels are presenting. We are, I think it should be, we are presenting in a more concise way for clarity. Or levels that, yeah, we are presenting.
Mhm. Anything else?
Sorry, that was in section
B.
B.
Under section 4, new business. Section C, discussion on reports to date. And then bullet 2, Pam and Lillian request.
Okay.
The levels we are presenting. Actually,
No,
let me
it's-
change that.
Yeah,
Request that the levels are presented or be presented, yeah, that the levels be presented in a more concise way.
Mhm. Anything else? None? Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
Oh, I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Seconds, all right, roll call. Lillian,
Yes.
Carter,
I'm gonna abstain.
Yep. Kathy, Alan,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wasn't here last time, so
and
I
yeah.
abstained.
Is that passing?
I don't think it does. I think you need to carry it over to the next meeting. The draft minutes would be carried over to the next meeting for a full quorum of attendees from the January 8th meeting.
Oh, I've got my work commitment. Can my yay carry forward?
Yes. Because you were here on Zoom. I'm gonna mark approved
I won't be on Zoom though.
next to you. No.
Our next meeting.
Um, um, no public, so no public comment. Old business. Starting off the continuing, scheduling the one-on-one interviews.
Do we have people on the list who requested interviews but don't have an interviewer?
Yes,
Okay,
on here.
okay,
So, yeah, so the ones that were Xed were people that said, can I have it with you? So I X those.
Yep.
But yes, any of these that are not Xed out, if someone would like to step up and
did people start choosing one?
I passed it last week, or 2 weeks ago, but no one did. It came right around with nothing added to it, so
Oh, the X.
next to their names, star, or whatever, next to their names.
I don't know these other people, but I'm happy to do one. I don't have a particular
You want to take a screenshot of it
preference for who.
and just say which ones you want to do? Because you don't have to do them all. And
Kathy.
frankly,
Kathy Luton.
I can take a look at the list too, I think, last time.
I mean, if you all have like any preferences, I can take. I'm gonna actually meet with Barb Thornton tomorrow.
nice. I'm gonna give you, and we'll get to the card things, because we're gonna go through these. I'm gonna give you a stack of cards to take with you.
Okay.
We can use those to borrow. And let's offload some of these, but.
So where is the X that you put? Oh, okay,
So Barb actually needs it processed.
okay.
Yep, so I'm gonna, you wanna mark Kathy on that one?
Yeah.
So everyone's done down to Barb, right?
Yeah, so
They're
Linda
taken.
Bollinger, Gail, Kathy Hill, Cam, Barbara Thorngren,
Yeah.
and Nicole.
They're all done.
Yeah, okay. I can do Kathy Boot.
Awesome.
Does anyone know Vanessa Van?
Van
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
I can do Vanessa.
She's right down the road. You wanna do
Okay.
Vanessa?
Sorry.
And Carter, do you wanna take a picture of, her contact info?
Never.
That leaves Emily Swidak on this.
Which I have to go down to see her about something else. I can make an arrangement.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kill two birds with one, kill two birds with one stone. Now, those are only the ones that's volunteered, but this is where we need, you know, Alan, your contacts, young folks in town, agriculture folks. We'll eventually be doing forums, which we'll wait on that for a second, but there could still be folks in there that might want one-on-one interviews. Is that something that you can ask your circle of friends?
I mean, not much around here for that, but
Not what?
there's not many people around here of that. That we specifically Temple.
Mm,
It could be just folks and that you
Yeah.
have contact with, maybe it's people you're pruning trees for or something like that are in town.
that are in town that we don't have contact with.
I mean,
And even if you
yeah, there's a
can,
couple of people.
if you can drum up the names, we can certainly help with doing the one-on-one interviews. Or figure out if they're a better fit for a small forum, group forum. When we get to that concept. But yeah, you've got a complete different demographic than the rest of us, and we really need to tap into as many different groups as we possibly can. We started to see at the last two forums in December, new faces for a change
Mhm.
that we hadn't seen at all. I'm kicking myself that we did not do sign-ins there.
Yeah,
You didn't do what?
Sign-ins, a sign-in sheet.
Oh.
yeah, that would have been a good idea for all of them.
I don't know why it didn't come up, but it could have been a great follow-up on any of those folks that were there.
Mhm. Next
I
time.
know most of them. There was one young couple at the third one that I did not know that sat on the far side of the room.
Yes, I don't know who they were, but I know he made.
They asked very good questions, insightful questions. The other one, that would love to talk about housing is Nick.
Oh, I know who you mean, but I don't know his
Yeah.
last name. Danny may know him, because I know
Yes,
he
he
goes
does.
through a lot.
Okay, so if these don't even have to be formal things. I mean, this is if you're, like, if you're gonna spend time with Barb tomorrow, right? So Ivy gave us the cards as one starter. The other, you folks asked after the last meeting for me to resend the public engagement plan. And on the bottom were some of the thought starter questions and things. But even to get conversations started, each of these decks of cards could be a good place to start too, right?
Mhm.
Because people are such visuals, right? Ivy chose not to pull any of the cards out of these. At one point she talked about going through and pulling some out, not including them. But on second thought, she said, I'd rather them exclude them. And the idea with the cards, just as a reminder for whoever wants to take them, is not whether you want to live in it, but can you see it someplace here in Temple? Would it serve a need in Temple? And is it appropriate for Temple in maintaining the qualities that the community wants to maintain? And is there a place for it somewhere? So anyone that wants to take, Lillian, do you want to do
Yes.
this set?
Yes, thank you.
Carter?
Sure.
Alan, would you rather wait until?
I
we do
mean,
a forum?
honestly, not to be a pessimist. But pretty much anyone I know around here in my bracket that didn't buy a house before COVID doesn't have a chance to. And has left here, or is stuck renting somewhere. Or with their parents,
Mm,
so
But we're not talking about.
it's gonna
interviewing.
be a lot of complaining and griping of input that I have to give to this committee of. $500,000 houses, that's typical.
Well, I think that's valuable information.
That's unnecessary.
Well, I'm just being like more on the cynical side of like I can kind of been saying the same thing the whole time.
But it's, I mean, it's not just
Yeah.
yourself, right? Like, I have a 36-year-old son who probably couldn't afford a house here in Temple as a registered nurse. It's a common cause or a common theme, but I think that's the whole purpose of what we're here to try to figure out. Versus it is what it is, right?
So I mean, it's a complete systematic thing that might not be solved in the annex of the Temple Town Hall.
True, but having more data points that are saying this is a serious problem might help convince some folks who might otherwise just say, no, I don't want any change, I want Temple to do the same. Might help open their minds a bit to be allowing other, more affordable housing types.
Thoughts?
I think we need all types of input. That's the purpose
Yeah.
of this. So if you
Yes.
can gather that,
Yeah.
like the rest of us, then we should do it.
I think it's as valuable as anything else that we're getting. And actually, we haven't heard from that demographic. So it's probably more valuable because if our care is for that, if we're caring for all the population, we need to hear from all the demographics. And maybe to your point, a forum, like a small group forum with your folks that you can think of, that we tag team with you on, would be more beneficial for you, or might be a little easier.
I mean, I'm just more getting at the people that, well, their voices aren't heard for a reason because they've been pushed out. And, and also like for the years of me being involved in between the planning board and this, the only person under the age of like 30. Not encouraged to be engaged, so therefore have mentally checked out and said that it's like, yep. This problem's not gonna be fixed.
No, the town of Temple is not gonna fix this problem.
Yeah.
No,
This is a
Yeah.
statewide.
it's nationwide.
Nationwide
Yeah.
problem, but we need to,
Then like, it's like those
Understand.
people I grew up with. Got out of here for a reason.
yeah. No, that is true. I guess what we're trying to tell you though is like, or at least what I am, is
Yeah.
that that perspective matters.
Mhm.
And if we only hear from people who have lived here and own houses for 25, 30, 40 years, it's not the same perspective as somebody that doesn't have a house, right, in Temple and maybe wants to. Right? So we can't change minds with only certain perspectives, I guess. So it's just encouragement for you to reach out to your network.
And the value that what it will bring to the work that we're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it strikes me that, so much of the data that we've gathered is exactly from people who own houses. And we as committee members have not been encouraged to offer our own feedback. And it sounds like, Alan, you would actually be an excellent person to be interviewed. Because you have a really valuable, unique, well, not completely unique, but as far as a lot of what our input is, you're going to offer a really valuable perspective. So I think actually your voice should be in our data.
Because to your point, so many of your friends have left because they haven't been able, and you've stayed here.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that, right?
Then it's also on the other side of it, the people I know that are still around here from my age bracket, not even in Temple with Monadnock Adrian.
Yep.
They're not showing up at a meeting on Monday night. They're working a second job or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Because, you know, I'm fortunate in my situation of not being homeless because of feeding a wood furnace, but that's not the case for the fact of everything around here is unattainable for the median wage.
So to Kathy's point, all the more reason. Yeah, we can do an interview with you. We can, and again, I would still stress that a small group in your demographic would be of huge value to all of our research.
Even if
When we
did
get
it
to
on
that
a
point.
Zoom or a conference call. Or-
Yeah, I was
Yep.
gonna say the thing of that is like, it's just gonna be like, we gripe to the clouds at each other. It's like getting people motivated to put in the effort to complain about the fact of
It could be a,
home ownership is slightly unattainable for people my age and younger at this point. It's kind of like beating a dead horse, so.
But you're here because you wanna try to help that or make a change, right? I mean.
I guess. so.
and you want,
Right. You just like coming out.
and you want us to hear your viewpoint.
Yeah,
And,
so,
and
I
the
think-
representation that you have for us.
right,
And if it means a Thursday morning or a Friday morning down at the root with whoever you can get together, that's something that we can do. Or whatever day. I mean, I'm just thinking meeting you and your group wherever you typically are. So I think what we're trying to say is don't underestimate the value of what information.
No, I get that, I'm just. Giving the perspective of like people my age kind of just being like, the apathy is set in, the late stage capitalism.
Well, and it's
Yeah,
hard.
which is
to-
rampant across the country.
But if we can focus on what we can do in Temple. Right?
Maybe 12 is on board. We need everything on board, but.
Yeah.
It'd help if we offered like a
I don't know.
That's an idea. Mhm. Even if we met at Friendship Hall for a small group,
think about it, see if you, see if you have any takers.
I mean, like realistically, I could probably scrounge like 4 or 5 people.
Oh.
At most from not just Temple, but close enough.
Okay.
So it's like, that's what the social circle is when you're body or MDR.
that's fine. That's 4 or 5 that we haven't heard from yet.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that they're not in Temple,
Yeah.
because it's the same issue all around us. It's nothing
Right.
specific to.
And if they ever were Temple residents, but they're not now, or they grew up here and they aren't now, there's value in that as well. Yeah. So think on that. We'd love to help you meet with some of those folks and pick their brains. Get their input. It would be very appreciated. Okay. Anything more on one-on-one interviews? And again, anybody you can think of, it doesn't have to be this list.
Is there, like, when are we trying to wrap these up by, like, and we want, like, a summary from each one, or what are we trying
So-
to, maybe you guys went over this
We,
before.
yeah, we talked about how most of our phones can do recording and transcribe it. I haven't looked into that yet, have you?
I know that I know laptops can, I haven't looked into the phone.
Okay, so Ivy's recommendation, yeah, she had said most everybody's phone
Sure.
these days, whatever. So yes, trying to transcribe, so the easiest way to do it would be if we could record it,
Mhm,
if they'd give us permission to record them
Sure,
and transcribe it.
And then like take pictures of the cards that they choose.
Yep. Just like we did in the front town hall here. When we went through those.
And do we have just a goal, a rough goal, how many we want to do?
I think more than anything, it's however many we can get done in X time frame. So I think back to Carter's point,
Okay,
what time frame? We have to be wrapped up by July.
but if we back it up from there,
Right,
but what are the rest of the commitments that we have to be done with?
so,
We have the one-on-one interviews, we need a recommendation to the planning board.
right, once we get the interviews done and the small group forums done, pulling that data with the summary that Ivy did from last year, and then yes, sitting down and figuring out, do we have something we want to propose to the planning board
Right,
for 2025?
should we set June 1st as a goal for having all that done so that it gives everyone a chance to write the rest of the report, understand what they told us, write the rest of the report, all of that?
Seems like we need more time than that if we're gonna like read the report and then decide what, like, to recommend to the planning board. And
So you're
I don't-
thinking May 1st?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Assuming that Ivy can do it, can turn it around in a month at least. I think we need at least 2 meetings to discuss.
right,
the
right.
results.
So that gives us March and April to do,
Well,
The-
you're in
the into
February.
February, March.
oh, yeah.
I forget February.
It's too cold, I'm hungry now.
That's when Alan's getting going.
Yeah,
Oh, today was too long.
The years flying by.
okay, so
I know.
I would,
sounds like by May that we want to have the small groups and the one-on-ones wrapped up
by
with.
the beginning of May.
I'm a little bit, just because of the difficulties we've had just even finding individuals who want one-on-one interviews, I'm a little concerned how we're gonna actually find people to do these small group.
Well,
So
and
that-
Yeah.
I am-
Is
That's our next,
realistically,
yeah,
people either have no interest or they're situated themselves good enough to not have an interest.
yeah, I just wonder if doing both is redundant because of it like, are we gonna hit up the same people we've just one-on-one
Yeah.
interviewed? And do
Yeah,
a
that
small
defeats
group?
the
I don't know.
purpose.
Yeah, and to your point, I think it'd be really tough to get even 3 or 4 people that fit a certain definition. You know, like business people.
Right, so
They-
when we talked about, all right,
Am I jumping ahead?
it's all right.
Well, yeah, no, this is what we need.
This is what we need, so it's, we can flex our agenda at any time, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Other business as needed. Um. So the groups that had been identified. Native temples. Young people, horse owners, new residents, longtime residents, landlords, agriculture groups, small business owners. School employees were just a few of them. We've heard from longtime residents. Almost at everything that we've done. And to your point, if we. Okay, so by example, Lillian, horse owner. Connected with Heather
Right,
and the horse world. Getting together with one person. As compared to what would a group of that look like?
right.
Well, how are you gonna
It could be
actually make
Bruce.
that? I just feel like that's just challenging logistically to get a group of people together to accomplish this.
That had the same schedules and, well, I was thinking even with the small business people, it's like. Okay, the business owners, so. We had talked about, Wheelan's and, the inn.
If there are 82 businesses in town.
Yeah,
Small
yeah.
businesses. But not
But-
everyone, yeah, I mean. You know, there's Integrity Auto, there are a lot of people who work from their homes
Mhm.
that don't have a shop necessarily.
But again, would that be a better use of one-on-one? Versus, I just think coordinating. Schedules when
I think it's.
is a
very
challenge.
Yeah, oh, I do
Yeah.
too.
I think it would be easier to hit one-on-ones
Yes.
and more one-on-ones that we can possibly get done.
Mhm.
Um,
How do we, how do we reach out to people? Since we've already been reaching out to people, how do we reach out to more people and say, hey, we're not trying to bother you, but can we please talk to you? I mean,
But maybe if it's like a friendly face, like, and it's like, I'm just thinking, okay, we're gonna. My neighbor, right,
okay,
you know,
yeah,
yeah,
that. I know well enough. To be like,
That
can
you
I have 10 minutes of your time?
Right.
Like, I can
yeah.
make that slightly painless. I can come to you, right? Or,
Right.
I don't know.
I mean, could we do the same thing on that? Because I agree, the personal outreach is gonna make more sense.
Yep.
Can we use, like, can we reach out again to all the boards and say, if you know someone personally, or, ask your neighbor, please, if they're willing to, because we're only so many people, we only know so many people in town, and it just feels like we're gonna miss a whole, I mean, that's how I got Barb to do it, because she is my neighbor, and I was, I do, hang out with her sometimes, so I'm just,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just feels
No,
like,
we
there's
would-
there's a limited
Yeah.
number that, that we can make, but we can maybe.
Well, I know that we've mentioned it in the CAC meeting. But it didn't go very
didn't
far.
go with-
And this HDC meeting and.
I mean, maybe it is like we take time out of, I mean, a lot of people are in those committees already. Maybe we use 5 minutes of a meeting to
Like interviews committee.
interview the committee. People, I don't know, right? Like just. to
No,
cover
that's
some-
good. I mean, that's not a bad idea.
I mean, how would that look?
Or even, would you just run them through these?
I'm
It'll
not,
be
I'm not sure I'm
faster.
the biggest fan of these, honestly. I kind of like the questions a little better for me personally, like
Yeah.
that's.
I like the
know that I'm gonna be like,
conversation.
well, let's look at these because I'm
And
not
those
excited
See,
about it.
are quick to go through.
And they're not quick.
We're-
No.
yeah, We're gonna be on some agenda, we don't want to be taking up 15, 20.
Yeah,
I think it
Good
depends
point.
on what we're trying to walk away with, like if we're just really looking for stories and input, then a conversation does that better. than-
better. Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I know when we did the cards, there were some people who said, oh, this looks pretty interesting, but then when you read the description, it wasn't at all what it
Yes,
looked like on the front.
right.
You flipped it over, it was completely different, and then some of them felt a little deceived.
Yeah. I mean, you could use this if you're like, you're struggling for.
Yeah,
To describe something, or you need like other
Yeah.
ideas. But yeah, I would agree. I'm not sure that's.
So the questions, just reviewing the questions on, tell me about your housing journey. What kind of living situation you had? How'd you end up in Temple? What do you think about New Hampshire's need for housing? What do you think Temple should do about housing? Have you ever struggled to find housing? Do you know people who have struggled to find housing?
I mean, personally, when I read these questions, I mean, I think, what do you think Temple should do about housing is kind of what we're looking
Is what we
for the
need.
input on.
That's the
mean, I
reason
think-
we're here,
Especially at this.
At this point,
right?
we
Right.
want to know what people want. Do you want change? What
Right.
what does that look like?
Right.
Exactly.
I think the one thing that we.
I mean,
Uh,
it's also what some people want isn't what is beneficial to society as a whole that needs to be accounted for.
Yeah, but we have to
Yeah,
ask the question to even have the input to
no, but I'm
say.
saying,
that, yeah,
people that like, oh, like nothing is wrong, everything is fine.
Sure.
and,
Oh, yeah.
But we're gonna get people like
Yeah.
that.
That's
Yeah.
why we need your
Yeah.
opinion.
but also there's no way you would ever get everyone to agree on one thing,
No,
no,
or even 5 things.
right, right,
So it's just
But
kind of getting,
the fundamental thing of like, when you tackle the housing problem, it goes against your own self-interest, because if there's more housing available, your property might be worth less money, so therefore.
I don't know if people would approach it that way. I think they're more interested in what Temple would look like. That's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
impression I get.
yep,
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a combination of A and B probably, so.
yeah,
Yeah, depending on what Temple looks like, it's gonna either raise or lower property values.
Yeah.
too.
yeah.
One of the things that I'm just thinking is though, are the people on our boards the same kind of people? How we've already done, there aren't a lot of
Yeah,
young
that's
people
true.
on boards.
right.
Um,
And
Well, and also,
demographics are very similar
yeah.
to what
yeah,
we pulled in.
yes. But I mean, we have things throughout the year, not just this committee, but I mean, many committees and forums to discuss things. And
Do you mean
In-
events?
yeah, events, like last year we had a safety forum and, that kind of thing that you'd think would get a lot of people to go out. But in general, I mean, if we get 25 people in a room, that's a huge amount for Temple. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday with the school discussion, but
Mhm.
so it's really hard to get people, even people to like pay attention to what's going on, even with a mailing where everybody in town got one. To have them show up and participate in something is really tough.
When the Conservation Commission last spring, I organized one of the UNH master gardeners to come and talk about gardening for pollinators. We actually had, like, they're between in-person and online, we actually had almost 40 people, which blew my mind. Because we never had that kind of. So I don't, can we, do we want to think outside the box and have some kind of totally interesting event that's attached to our questions. I don't know. I just want to throw it out there. That was,
I wanted to go to
when we were
that.
talking about that.
Yeah, I think it's just, I mean, it's hard to find the energy to do more, like, I feel like we did a lot of events last year.
We did. We did.
Yeah.
And to find the energy to do another one that, to your point, like, may only draw 10 people, and then what?
Yeah, it was surprising, like, the July 4th event, I mean, a lot of people were there. And some people came by and kind of looked at what was going on, but they didn't participate.
Yeah.
And it didn't require a lot of attention or time or anything.
And it was kind of interesting, I thought, the things that we were asking, drawing. and
The
stuff.
housing journey was
Yeah,
Yeah.
really interesting.
Well, you gotta look on the other side, if you're like struggling to pay your mortgage and shit, and you like see something like that in your face, you're not gonna wanna engage in it.
Yeah,
Like everything with inflation and food costs and, you know. The people that think they're secure are gonna be less secure than they think they are.
Yeah, it is hard to do.
So,
I mean, I think we could try to draw people, I don't know. We might have to be more upfront than we have been. I feel like everything we've done, all the events we've done have been very like soft in terms of like, let's talk about housing and, you know, but not. We haven't really talked about solutioning, and I think
Right.
Ivy started to present some of those ideas at the last session she did, but we haven't. And I'm not sure that we should do this, but like going out and asking people, well, here are the options that we can present to the town. What do you think, right? And getting like what realistically, if we, at the end of the day, if we take Ivy's feedback, I forget, I don't think I have the document in front of me, but what it's like ADUs, farmstead,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
all the things.
Well,
Maybe
and I love that,
Bucks'
because
farmstead,
our
connected
events
farm.
Well, then let us present at you, or we're gonna give you a set of questions.
Yeah.
And we don't want your feedback. If
Yeah.
we actually had an event that said, okay, here's the feedback we've gathered so far, and like you said, be upfront about it and say, let's have a discussion. We're not gonna present, we're not gonna, we actually want to hear from you. Because I think, especially at the beginning, everyone was so upset because they weren't able to
Yeah,
say
Right.
what they wanted to say.
Right.
And I think in some cases, we turned away a lot,
Yeah,
which is a shame. But if we maybe had, and I don't know that Ivy would agree, because she seems to like to keep everything.
well, I know, I mean, that can go really poorly too, right?
It
Because
can. It can.
if the stage is taken over and people are upset, right? Like, well, that's not helpful either, right? Like, not.
Do we have anyone on? Like, who is in a, like, trained, I don't know that it's a mediator job, but.
Yeah,
But any
Yeah.
kind of a facilitator, I mean, I do it in very, like, one-on-one situation with, dealing with people, but. Just to be very, to have.
someone that's not connected to, folks know we're on the steering committee and what we're doing, so someone that's not from our steering committee, that's,
Either that or just someone who can be very neutral. Or, just.
like a,
not perceived as someone who has an agenda, but I think.
like a
that-
Jessica Hip, Nicole Concordia, I'm trying to think of well-spoken. But how would you bring them up to speed to facilitate that?
I guess it's also for this group too, and maybe it's jumping the gun, but like, what exactly are we going to take away from this and recommend? Because that's really what we should be talking about with folks, if
Right,
we have an idea of what that is, because.
right.
Cause we can't
So-
just be like, and. We're done.
Right, And we
Right.
can't,
Yeah.
we can't make decisions about what to recommend to the planning board without actual, like, more discussions from residents. I don't feel like we have enough
Right,
yet to, with any confidence, say to the planning board, yes, we think you should do this.
Yeah.
I mean, probably
'cause-
ADUs are on that list, but still, that's like one small piece.
well, it might even be helpful for the one-on-one interviews if we can talk about. Rather than just being like, well, you think of what we should do, like what,
Can we release, I mean, to some
Well-
degree, what Ivy has created, or perhaps the, like you say, the end of Ivy's report that has, you know, the summary of the last presentation, which has her suggestions.
I mean, I think it's public. It should be-
Okay,
That is from the last forum that we had, I think it was posted anyways, so.
okay,
Yeah,
okay, because
Okay.
that really does give people something to respond to say,
right,
okay, this is what we've heard from you all so far. Can you give us more feedback on it? Like, what, you know, should we be asking other questions? Should we down other, you know, directions, or do you
Yeah.
do you agree with these things?
And also making sure folks understand what those things are. Like,
That's-
so that's my
Yeah.
thing, like,
Yes.
Definitions, which.
right. So on the last presentation, her 4 takeaways from previous things were ADUs, whether it be detached or whatever. Duplexes, farmsteads, and connected farms were the things that tended to get the most appeal.
Yeah, if I can interject, the ADU issue though is people are hesitant about ADUs because they're interested in an ADU itself, which is an attached. But a detached is completely different. And a lot of people are positive about the ADUs, but totally negative on the detached. Because then you're starting to talk about other zoning and having 2 or 3 houses on a lot and all of that, and it becomes much more involved.
but, yeah.
But
So
but
I
that-
think
that-
we
that
would
would be
need
the
to
plan.
break that out.
To get into that detail?
Yeah, but I'm saying, what I'm saying is, if we're asking people to give their opinion on those 4 or 5 things, we should break out the
Okay.
ADU, an
Attached.
in-law apartment that's attached versus something that's detached.
I mean, we
But
certainly
when
can.
I think her ADU is an umbrella,
Yes, but
meaning both of those.
Yeah.
yes,
so
my
the
point is,
change would be,
Yeah,
if we were going to make a change in town. It would be to detached ADUs, so we need to
Right.
define what that is, is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we need to say, it's not just an ADU in the basement, we're talking about.
a
A
detached,
detached ADU, and
yeah,
this is currently in town, like what you can have, right?
Mhm,
It's
right.
on 6 or more acres.
twice the
and-
acreage based on what region you live. in.
Yeah,
right. So yeah, we'd have to definitely define it and be very clear, saying, okay, we already allow
Yes.
ADUs.
yeah,
What we're talking about is detached.
And we allow detached ADUs already,
yeah,
Yeah, but they're very,
but you have to have
Very
twice
strict,
the
yes.
acreage of your district.
yes,
yeah, I agree, I think we have
Yeah.
to define what it is we're talking
yeah,
about.
because otherwise people are gonna
Yeah,
put their,
you hear
their,
one thing.
yeah, and they're gonna put up a roadblock and say, no, I don't want that at all.
Right,
So I don't think it would give us a clear, answer to what they're thinking.
Right,
Well, and I think one of Ivy's points, I think, would be, you know, to make ADUs permissible by. There's no special exception. Yeah, to make them behavior.
But again,
So
it would
explain
have to
that.
be, yeah, a lot of definition, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think too, I mean, I might have brought this up before, I forget, but conservation is so important to all of us. And to the townsfolk, we hear it all the time. And wide open spaces. I think it's important that we are able to explain all of these definitions and things, but also what it means to the things we value most, like for instance. So a detached ADU. It's got a specific square footage, it can't be any more than X percentage of what the big house is, whatever. But you've got to have twice the acreage, so in the rural district. A 3-acre minimum lot, it means you have to be on a 6-acre lot to put a small detached ADU. You could have as many barns as you want on your property.
Yeah.
You could have a big old barn bigger than your house. And outbuildings, whatever. But when you think about conservation, the fact that we require that you take a 6-acre lot to put a second piece on, a detached, as compared to allowing a 3-acre lot to have that, you conserve more land when you don't double the square or the acreage that you have to have.
Think in hearing conversations about this in the past, I think some concern is that then you could feasibly in 20 years have every 3-acre lot have 2 houses.
It would never happen.
Well, I know, I'm just
Yeah.
being devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just as an interesting point, just for your own thinking, Sean Radcliffe pointed out to me after the last meeting that, or no, I don't know when it was, that ADUs aren't such an awesome idea down the road, because it means that when you try to sell your house, it's going to be more expensive now. So for the newer, the next generation trying to buy a house, it's actually gonna make it more expensive.
But then you also have the rental, but you have the rental income.
But you may not even-
Generation of.
may not even
Again,
know.
Well, yeah, you have the rental income as part of your
Would be
income.
part of your income.
It's part of your income. No,
You can
because,
use that when you're buying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true,
yeah.
true.
That's-
But also the sense of like, it will, like, people that. I don't wanna be generationally biased. But they're the ones that can afford to put in ADUs, then young people would be just spending rent money on an ADU
True.
instead of. Having a chance to own anything,
You're right.
not saying that I'm like against it, but that's like another factor.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And like, paying someone else's mortgage instead of having a chance to own something.
right. Well, and actually, everything on that list, with the exception of a village node, is rental, right? Because if it's a multifamily, well, I get multifamily,
That's what like duplexes, someone owns it, other person
Right.
said.
but you could
In
have,
those situations.
but like all of the farms.
The farm-
no, not
that's gonna be-
necessarily. No, you could have, I've seen houses that are like that are condos.
Yeah.
People buy their
Yeah, like-
apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
that's true.
There's one in like that in Amherst. I saw that one for sale recently. It's like big house with a lot of condos. Yeah,
Mhm.
an old place.
Does it look like an antique?
It does, it's beautiful.
Wow.
Do we allow,
With the
do
hammer.
we allow? Do we have to, is that something different?
Well, I don't know. That's something we could put on the list that Ivy didn't include, because you could, if somebody wants to buy something and live here, they could afford a condo as opposed to a house.
We should ask Cause I don't know that, I haven't heard any talk about
But we could put that
Yeah.
on our list.
condos.
We don't have to, I
Yeah.
don't know if we have to ask anybody. We just put it on the list.
Well, I
because
guess
somebody
somebody
took-
question for the planning board, actually.
I don't know,
Allow.
but I
Divide.
don't believe that we do.
Yeah, I feel like for when I was on the planning board, that was not thing. But I could figure out.
Well,
Because you
duplexes aren't
can't- you
either,
can't
but
build a
that's on the list.
duplex,
Yeah,
So I don't.
Oh,
think
okay,
you could do
true.
that, right?
That's, yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing. Okay.
Mm.
Well, that's true, and I guess a multi-family implies ownership, is that true?
no,
So those would be condos,
No, it
not
doesn't-
multifamily
it doesn't
beyond.
apply that.
It doesn't.
could be apartments.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would say that we probably don't, just based on.
Okay, all right. So that might be something we should,
So I think we have a lot of definitions that we need to figure out ourselves before we even start engaging.
I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I think we can still have conversations with people and we should, because we need to get them done.
yeah, because what I was thinking was, what if we had, a photo of something, just like a really mini PowerPoint, where you have a photo of a type of house and you have the definition, and you say, this is, would you be amenable to something like this? And then just go through 4 or 5 of those, just as a conversation starter.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
can we use the pictures in Ivy's report? for
Yeah, they're
that?
not in Temple. None of those are in.
Well,
Temple.
I don't think it matters whether it's in Temple or not, it's the idea of showing them a picture and saying, is this? I don't
We
remember,
can use that, the report is for us. to
okay,
use.
I wasn't sure if all the pictures that were like representative of what we're talking about, like, all of the recommendations in there.
I think in the PowerPoint they might be, or. Oh, I don't remember.
But I think
don't
that
think
the
the PowerPoint
report
has-
itself has quite a few different types of houses.
Alan, this is in your inbox, in your email.
Yeah, I saw the
Okay.
PDF, I'm pretty sure those pictures of housing.
There was, I wasn't sure,
Yeah.
I didn't look at the pictures,
There
the
are-
idea of, does it have a picture of everything that we're trying to explain to people?
Yeah.
I think if we took the definitions we want, 5 or 6, and went through the report, we would have a
We could find it.
building that would apply, yeah.
Are you talking about like using these?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
that's-
picking one, there's definitely a picture of a farmstead in there.
Yeah,
Um. Apparently cluster developments are out, I guess.
although in the report,
I mean, it's funny, because she was talking about,
'Cause-
there were some people who actually like cluster developments, but yet in her recommendation, she didn't include them. So,
There were, I think I've been to every one, and I don't think there were a lot of people who liked the cluster.
I thought in the report, there were,
yeah,
unless I'm confusing them, but it,
Well, I know there's a lot of data in here too.
I also think that, Ivy is trying to realistically think about what change could actually be brought to Temple.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I think that is a challenge, I'm not,
Yeah.
I can't do that, it's,
Yeah.
It's probably.
No,
not.
that's a good point. That's a good point.
we have to. We're going to move forward with something, we have to think about that.
Yeah, what's the most likely? Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
I really love your idea about the rental versus. I hadn't put it into such separate boxes,
mm-hmm,
but it really is something to think about, not just the fact.
We're not, but we're not gonna. It is something to think about, I think we're not gonna solve. All, like creating more rentals is probably a good thing too, because.
Oh,
there's
definitely.
Not enough rentals.
Yeah, but like not
Yeah.
do everything. It felt like just from so many conversations that like ADUs were gonna be the way.
Oh,
that's
yeah, no,
all-
it's not gonna solve.
That's all rental.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's still like kicking the can of not home ownership for
Yeah.
majority of people.
Right.
Right.
And even though, like, yes, people need like rentals, but it still isn't fulfilling the quote unquote American dream.
Yeah.
But what's
Well, and
the
you need to-
percentage though? Cause I remember the Chamber of Commerce, I think, US Chamber of Commerce came out and said something like only a certain percentage of people typically will buy, and so that's, they base all the economics on this percentage of the population will own a home, this population will rent, you know, that whole thing.
Okay.
You know, the worst thing in the world is to be an independent voter in the day before the
Oh.
primary.
Oh, yeah,
And I keep turning the
It's
sound
been
down.
nonstop.
It's just,
I'm getting like 10 spam calls a day.
I've gotten like 10 in an hour.
Yep. My,
And also a lot of that is you would, well, before interest rates went to the moon. You could be paying more for rent than it would be for the mortgage. but
Oh,
you
yeah.
wouldn't get approved still.
Right.
And
Yes.
it's even more so now, but even like 4 or 5 years ago, it's like, oh, you,
yep,
the same place that you're paying $1,500 a month, like mortgage would have been 1,000, but
Yeah.
you couldn't get approved because the bank said you didn't have enough money because the. I know a lot of people of my generation was like after 08, they were like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that for a little bit.
But you know what, Alan, it's been like that forever. It's like, it was like that the first time I tried to buy a house. You know, it's like, it's always been that way. Unfortunately, you know,
So I guess like,
yeah, well, that's, yeah, that's life. So should, somebody volunteer? I'd be happy to work on it, to put together that 5 or 6 slide thing.
sure.
Yeah, I
That
think
would be much
helpful.
appreciated.
Okay, I just need a copy of her, or the report that you sent that's not in a PDF.
Yep. She sent it PDF, so I'll just grab it, non-PDF, I'll ask her for a non-PDF.
Okay.
And then the last page, right before the conclusion or the appendix in the document that she did, lists the things, the top things
Yes.
that. So
Yeah,
if we just focus on the accessory dwelling units, conservation subdivisions, pocket neighborhoods, farmstead, connected farms, duplexes.
mhm. Yeah, and I'll break out the ADUs and the detached.
Yeah,
wait a minute, neighborhoods is in there, but it's not in her.
it is part of the,
Small development. Well, I
this
think
was the possibilities for making ordinance changes to allow more housing choice in Temple based on the,
This was in the document you sent today.
yeah,
yeah,
right.
page 7.
The pages aren't numbered. When I printed
But-
it out.
Yeah, she calls it pocket neighborhood in one place and then she calls it something else in
Yeah.
another place. That's the village node.
Village node,
thing. Yeah, and that's confusing, that it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah.
Needs to be, yeah,
yep. But yeah, if we had the visuals to go along with these when we're meeting with folks and can have conversations about their feelings on these things.
So to get back to, how are we gonna have are we gonna just start with the people that we know personally?
I mean, I think we should start with this list and the people that we know and
Yep.
then get as far as we can. And if we need to reach out to more, then maybe we publicly put something out there.
Yeah. I mean, we
There's
could,
social media or I don't know.
we could even,
You could even like, oh, like, for the Facebook pages, be like, hey, send a 5-minute voice memo of you bitching about what you think is wrong with housing.
Yeah,
People would. do
And
it.
people like,
Yeah.
like,
You're right.
that is a way to engage
sure.
people. Like, you don't give them an answer, you be like, what do you think is wrong with it?
Yeah,
Because it's not like, you know, I feel that would be more responsive of at least. That demographic that is sitting around on Facebook or
Yeah.
something like that, that is different than. Is coming to these meetings.
Sure.
So,
Can we set up a Google Voice, because Google Voice automatically transcribes, not everything accurate.
Mhm.
I use it for work. Can we set up our own Google Voice and just have people do that?
I don't know.
And then we.
Oh, who's gonna go through it? I would not, I'm not volunteering for that.
It's easy to just cut and paste all that. You know, if you have a Gmail account associated with it, it all comes through to your Gmail, so literally cut and paste into a document of feedback. Which I assume I would be going through too.
I wouldn't do. So if somebody else wants to do that, they can. But I'm not going through all the transcripts.
Well, I'm saying we wouldn't necessarily have to do it, we'd just be cutting and pasting and sticking in a document.
Yeah, but you have to read it in order to cut and paste.
Yeah.
You don't read through everything that somebody said in order to figure out what you're gonna pull out?
I would pull out the entire transcript and stick it in a document.
Oh, but nobody's gonna read all that.
Okay, but actually, that's raises another question.
I'm
What are
lost.
we doing with all of these transcripts like that we collect? How are we, or is Ivy compiling it? Are we compiling? Or
We're doing, from this,
like, are we
from-
sharing it somehow?
from this point, from this point on, we're doing the gathering and analysis to figure out what we want to put forward to the planning board.
Okay,
Oh, okay,
So
So we
she's not
good.
limiting Ivy's time at this point, correct?
that's
So-
good.
Yep, so we'll be doing the forums,
Okay,
we'll be doing the interviews. So I should drop the cards off today so that anybody that wanted to use them, we could have them.
okay.
You don't want them?
Oh, no, I'm gonna use the thing, the document I'm putting together instead.
Yeah, so we'll have all the information at our fingertips.
Okay,
Okay. So
That
it's
sounds
exactly what I
great.
said there.
So does it, I guess, kind of, how are we going to share that amongst ourselves? Because, I mean, that's really, I guess, if we're gathering this information, we need to either discuss it at some point, or somebody summarizes it, but I'm not sure it should be one person. I'm not sure the best way to do that is,
yeah,
especially if we're all kind of gathering it in different ways. I'm a little bit concerned
Yeah.
that we could have a
Yeah,
lot
there's
of
no-
information and
And
not.
there's no consistent form.
And not a
Yeah.
consistent format, and then,
well, that was part of what I was, and I didn't take it that far, but I was thinking if we have that document, that's 5 or 6 visuals. And with definitions, and you
Yeah.
ask about, okay, what about this, what about this? You at least have a little bit of quantitative data, and then you can ask them, like, we should decide on maybe 3 questions we want to ask them.
yeah,
And just stick with that, and that way we get the same type of information from everybody.
and have some of these already been done, or did you?
No.
None of them have been started.
Nope.
Okay.
No, not until we had our conversation
Yeah, so
on
that's
okay.
good,
how to move forward on it.
Yeah,
yeah, that's good, that way we can have the same type of
Right,
responses. I mean, they can answer the same questions.
Right.
That's what I-
Yeah.
Yeah,
which will make
okay,
pulling it all together
much easier,
much easier.
yeah,
I mean, if we have a format, like from whatever you create, and then we have a corresponding document that says like, number 1, what did you think of pictures, I don't know, 1 through 5 or something like that? So we have our questions, and then each of us could just take that template and fill in what the person said, and then
yeah,
maybe
yeah.
send it to you, and then you can attach all of them to the agendas.
Yep.
So that we can then
Review
review
them.
them for the meeting, you know.
Yeah. Another idea too is that we could create like a Google form,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
that we could
yeah.
all use, and that way it would just, we could use that as our interface while we're talking to the person.
Yes,
And it would input the data all together and
Into a spreadsheet.
into a
yeah.
spreadsheet, and that way we could look at it. I'm just concerned of how we're gonna look at this at the end
Right.
of the day.
yeah, that's a good point.
How you're gonna pull it all together.
Yeah.
and-
And
If people's if people's answers are wrong.
Well,
But
yeah.
still better, I think it's better, I like that idea because at least we can have it all in one document.
right,
So
Yeah.
we-
Well, I'm happy to put together the initial one with the visual and the definitions. And then I can go through the questions and we can decide which questions, top 3 that we think everyone should answer. And if somebody else wants to put it in the Google form,
I can do that, I don't mind
Okay.
doing that.
Okay.
But I'll do that one after.
oh yeah,
you've
yeah,
done- Okay.
once we've
Yeah.
finalized everything,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. Tomorrow you can just enjoy your coffee.
Enjoy,
I mean, if you're already.
Yeah.
I think,
Okay,
we've come full circle and have a better idea on what we want to do. And how we want to facilitate and move forward with gathering this information.
yeah,
And
Alan,
counting on
I'm
Alan.
gonna say, why-
Okay,
I mean, Alan, what do you think this committee should be doing?
I don't completely have an answer for that. But
Yeah. I mean. We're open to ideas.
yeah,
I think it's more of a. There isn't an answer to it.
Right. No, I agree. It's a huge topic that the nation is facing, right?
right,
yeah. And is, you said-
How is to be profit off of it being a crisis, so
Yeah.
or it's gonna continue.
Right,
mhm,
Like all the hedge funds buying single family houses.
yeah,
And then like, yeah, people with retirement funds that are invested in their stock index portfolios, they're like, oh, that's good with me because I got mine. That already own a house, but everyone else below them on the ladder that get on.
yeah,
Everyone buying their apartment.
very good.
oh,
Like,
that,
I'm buying farmland.
Yeah.
But
It's the biggest planner.
it's, yeah.
Farmland.
hmm. Yeah. Okay,
should I make a motion to adjourn?
so,
Agree.
um,
Or am I jumping the gun?
Well, it feels like we have.
yeah, I think, we've touched on just about everything on the agenda. The needs assessment to be fulfilled prior to the end of July, we talked about briefly last meeting as far as, what we had to have done by then. And I think what we've just discussed tonight gets us that much closer to,
I feel much better now about moving forward with the one-on-one interviews than I did before.
yeah,
It seemed a little nebulous.
mhm. I just needed clarity.
Yeah, no, I think it's helpful to understand. If we have a format of how we're gonna do it, and then also understanding, I guess, that IB is not involved going forward, so.
Right.
How are we then taking that and formulating it into a perspective or a
Yeah.
recommendation?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
Oh, I make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. Oh,
Your input, Al?